Okay, well this little fella has become massively, hugely fashionable and popular in the last few years. This is the Chod rig. It's probably the rig that we get asked most how to tie and how to make correctly, because working with stiff materials isn't always easy, or it hasn't been. So I'm going to take you through how to fish this rig. It's a Chod on the line rig. I know that some people are advocating fishing this on lead core, and sometimes great big long lengths of lead core, not very safe. You know, in the wrong hands, or even in good hands, if you lose a rig that's got metres and metres of lead core in a weedy situation with one of these attached, it's a recipe for disaster. So we tend to fish them on the line, and I'll show you exactly how we set that up. Now, the Choddy has been made a lot more easier to tie thanks to this, which is a new Chod filament material, which I genuinely believe is better than anything else that's out there. It's easier to make stiff rigs with this, it's just easier to work with. And also, if you want to shape your rig, impart any kind of curvature to it, then this does what you tell it first time of asking, no steaming or messing about required. So I'm going to tie up the rig using the mouth trap and of course the Choddy hooks, which were designed for this kind of rig. I use the 25-pound mouth trap with a size 6 Choddy, principally because you're fishing a stiff rig, get it as stiff as you can. Make your rig using the natural curve in the material. I use a knotless knot. I know some people say that's rubbish for this rig, you need to use a whipping knot. I don't think that's really true, because the material, you can shape it and make it how you want it to be. So knotless knot works well for me and the boys. So pass it through the back of the shank and make your knotless knot in the normal fashion. Like so. I use 7 turns, I think that was 7, I wasn't counting, but it looks about right. And pull it nice and tight. So as you can see, I've used the curve that's in the material. So straight away, as it's come off the spool, you can see you've got a nice curved rig there before you've even had to do anything to it. Now, the tag end, I'm going to get a Korda rig ring, the largest one that we do. Large ones give them bait lots of movement, and the secret with a lot of stiff rigs is to have a stiff rig but good movement to the stiff rig. So we just pop the tag end back through there to make a little D, and then we'll just pull that down, trim it off and blob it with a lighter, which in this breeze is going to be tricky. So bear with me. Okay, so once you've made the D, just blob it off with a lighter. I had to do that out of shot because of the breeze. You can see that's blobbed nicely. And what I like to use is any old sort of rig tool that's got a tapered point on it to make my D. I'm really fussy about the shape of my Ds. And then a tapered needle like this will get you a perfect D every time. Put that through there and pull it tight, and you'll find that you get an absolutely perfect D. You can stretch it and make it any shape you want. I'm just going to show you what we're going to attach it to before we attach it. So I've got a little rig that I made up earlier to show you. This is on a length of main line. At this end, we've got a small lead. This type of rig, you want to really use the lightest lead you can get away with. This is at about 1.5 ounces. I've got a cut down tail rubber. As you can see, I've cut the swivel off of the lead, and then I've cut the pointy bit off of the tail rubber and pushed that down over the loop that's on the lead. It just basically means that when the beads come down, you can see that the bead sits against there better than it would if it was all pointed like the normal end of the tail rubber. And then up here you can see basically there's 2 of our 4mm rubber beads and 2 small sinkers, and in between the whole lot a size 11 ring swivel mounted with the ring onto the line. And what you do is you push the beads onto the sinkers, a bit of travel between the 2 beads, like I've got maybe 1 inch or so. You'll find that the top bead will pop off that sinker very, very easily, and the rig is free running and extremely safe. So we're going to attach the Chod rig that we've tied to that. What I'm going to do is attach the Chod rig slightly differently to what most people are doing, taking a leaf from out of Uncle Jim's book. He's been using a loop in his Chod rigs for quite a while, and once you put a loop in the bottom of this stiff section where you attach it to the swivel, the movement in this kind of direction, 360, is quite incredible. So I'm going to show you how I do that. So the ring of the swivel is on the line, and what we're going to do is tie the end of the Chod section to the eye of the swivel. Whatever length you like. I mean, I I generally like quite long ones, but I'm going to tie this a bit short. Pass it twice around blood knot style. It's going to be very difficult to show you this, but it's twisted round there twice, and then pop it back through the loop that you've made, like so. Hopefully you can see that, and then back through the first loop, or the loop that you've just made to create that. It's basically a 2-turn tuck blood knot, so you can look that up. Okay. Now, that looks a bit of a mess, but what I'll do now is put a puller tool through the loop, like so. Make sure that your swivel is on the inside by the knot and not round jammed against the plastic. Take a swivel lead or another puller tool, pass it over your hook point, and wet it and pull the whole thing down tight. There we go. Now, you'll see what we've done here. If I'll just trim that off before I show you. So, what you end up with is a beautifully formed round little loop knot against the swivel eye. And not like any of these big loop knots, because that is tied using a 2-turn twice tucked blood knot, under pressure that will close down if you're playing a fish. This material is extremely robust, and the sliding of the knot won't damage it, but at the same time, unlike a grinner knot or something like that, you can hook this onto your rods, pack them away, and it won't close down. All you need to do is keep putting your tool through it, your puller tool, and keeping it nice and round like that. But beautiful little round loop. So once you've got that in there, I like to impart, like all of us do, a nice little curve to the rig. Dead easy to work with the mouth trap. You can make it go exactly how you want it straight away. That's probably about the right curve. But what you'll see, because of this loop, the movement on the rig in so far how it can spin round 360 degrees is phenomenal. It takes the slightest touch from the back of the hook, so basically it means whichever direction the carp sucks the bait from, or even if it's coming in to pick up the bait with its mouth, the bottom lip touches the back of this curved section, this will spin round every time. If you make it up with a pop-up, obviously you need to use it with pop-up, but if you put a bait on it and drop it in the edge and just touch it, you'll see it spins around in a very dangerous, catchy type fashion. So the 4mm Korda rubber bead fits on these sinkers perfectly. Now you'll find when you look at these 4mm beads that there is a large hole and a small hole. There's a bigger bore one side, smaller bore the other side. With the top bead, you want the bigger hole to be facing down the line so that it fits over the top of your sinker like so. And that means it'll fit over it nice and easily, and it'll also pop off nice and easily. So there you go. All we need to do now is add a bait. Take a length of dental floss, make a loop in your floss like that, and then all you're going to do is make another smaller loop that sits inside the bigger loop, like so. Very straightforward. Take the end and pass it through both loops twice. Once and twice. Okay, and then when you slowly pull this down, you'll find that the smaller loop on the inside disappears and pulls tight, and you now have a slip knot with a larger loop, which if you see I pull both ends, gets smaller. That's going to go around your bait. Pass it inside the loop, make sure it's nice and centrally placed around your boilie, pull it up nice and tight. Okay, there we go. Just put the lead there. Okay, so the end of your floss is going to be passed through the mini ring on the back of the hook, like so. And then we're just going to tie several overhand knots to secure it to the ring, like so. 3 or 4 is fine. Okay, and then we're going to trim that down, leaving a couple of mil. You should be able to see that we're going to take a lighter and just melt those down, which blobs the knot and means that it can never ever come undone. It's effectively like gluing it without glue. So I'm just going to try and do that without the wind getting in the way. I'll show you what I've done in a second. I always cover the D and the part of the hook link with my fingers so that there's no way it can get burnt, because your fingers will burn first, and you'll definitely notice that. It's blobbed and knotted onto the back of that D-ring. We've got a lovely little curved rig, and we've got a nice loop which gives the bait movement and it gives the rig movement. If you hold the bait in your fingers, look at how the hook can move and pivot right the way round. That's all down to this loop here that we've tied by the swivel. You'll see the last thing I've done is I've just moulded a little bit of putty around the barrel of the swivel. Be careful when you're doing that, because you don't want to reduce or inhibit the movement of the swivel. Doing it like that, as long as that top eye can spin freely, then you'll be all right, especially with that loop. So a little bit moulded around the barrel like that's fine. If you're using a cork ball pop-up, you'll need to put putty on like that. I like cork balls because sometimes my baits are out for a long time. If you're fishing short sessions, then something like this sort of proprietary shelf life pop-up, this is a mainline one, will hold up your chod rig with either little or no putty for 6 to 8 hours, and that's fine. But like I say, I like a cork ball, so a bit of putty around the swivel, make sure you don't reduce the movement of it, and you're ready to go. That's the chod on the line.